Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Saturday HOA Brunch, presented by Angius&Terry, LLP. Please sit back, relax, and join Brad Epstein and Jonathan Broderick for an hour of entertaining information about HOAs and HOA law.
Well, good morning, Sacramento. The Saturday HOA Brunch. We're back in studio, and we're live. Last week, we played a little best of episode, and fortunately, we've got some technical issues resolved in the studio, and we're excited to be back. This is the exclusive HOA radio show, and it's raining this morning in Sacramento. We need a little bit of water, right?
Absolutely.
Because of all of the drought legislation.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to thank Frank for saving us last week. You know, technical difficulties, but Frank on the sticks. He comes through as usual.
Don't mention it, eh?
And we thank our listeners. We honestly are fortunate to have our listeners. And if they want to call, it's 888-923-1380, 888-923-1380 KTKZ. This is a Saturday HOA Brunch. This is going to be a fabulous show, huh, Jonathan?
This is going to be an excellent show, and the reason why is because our powerful lineup of industry experts continue to join us on this show. And today we have a special show, and it's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. Another titan in the industry. Who is that, Jonathan?
Well, that would be Mr. Rolf Crocker,
the
CEO,
one and only.
Yeah, of
the
Omni
one and
Management.
Only.
I'm surprised
a true gentleman.
He didn't bring his guitar in today and string
Actually, I have one out in the car. I could have probably brought it up. But,
on the break, we'll bring it in. Hey, maybe it could happen. We'll see.
Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for having me back. I appreciate it.
Well, we're always excited to have you in studio, Rolf. And I don't want to jump too far back, but a couple of weeks ago we had the CACM Law Seminar, and you spoke in one of the sessions,
yes.
And there's this great video, and you played some Eagles for everyone?
We played some Eagles. So the subject was managers therapy, and if any of you out there are community managers, you know what I'm talking about. So the room was packed out. We had a panelist of 4 other folks, professionals who were getting ready to speak, and literally they had to bring chairs in 15 minutes before everything started. So I figured it's therapy, so what better therapy is there than music? So did a tribute to the late Glenn Frey, and we did Take It Easy for the Eagles, not knowing that would actually be the song that was chosen by the Eagles on the Grammys the following Monday night. So they didn't check in with me, but that was pretty cool to see that lined up. It was awesome.
That's awesome. Hey, so Rolf, real quick, you have a couple of different things going on.
Right.
Exciting stuff. You have HOA Director Magazine.
That's correct.
And it's now been, how long? Over a year since you've taken over the reins at Omni Community Management, almost.
Been there for about 15 months and took over ownership of it the middle of last year.
Great. Tell us real quick a little bit about HOA Director and then also Omni.
HOA Director Magazine is a magazine that goes out to HOA board members. We have in every market. We're right now in 3 markets: Las Vegas, Northern California, and in Phoenix and Tucson. Goes out to over 2,000 confirmed board member home addresses. And what it is unbiased information that helps HOA volunteer leaders govern their community.
Excellent.
Sounds very helpful. Absolutely, right?
Yeah, and you're excited today because it's rules and enforcement, right, Counselor?
That's right. You know, construction defects are an important subject, and the infrastructure is important. But, people, pets, and parking, you got to keep that under control.
The 3 Ps, that's right. Every industry has a version of the 3 Ps, and that is ours.
Yeah, so we're going to do this in a little different format. What we have is some information from one of the founders of our firm, the only Dan Angus.
Legend.
Indeed, absolutely.
Right, we're Angius&Terry, the law firm, and all started by Mr. Dan Angus and Paul Terry. And so what we're going to be doing is talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we're talking about homeowners, the different types of homeowners that we have to deal with in rule enforcement. Right, Rolf?
That's correct. So violations, rules enforcement is one of the biggest things that we end up being a part of. But what I found over the last 27 plus years of doing this is that a lot of it is an educational process, and people don't really realize that when you're living together in close quarters in common, that rules aren't just there to make people's lives miserable, but they should be there to help give some context to living together in close quarters. And one of the things that came out probably about 10 years ago from the Community Associations Institute, CAI, is a document called Rights and Responsibilities for Better Communities. And what it does is it goes through the rights of homeowners and the responsibilities of owners, then the rights of community leaders and the responsibilities, to kind of give some context and definition to the fact of, look, we all need to get along together. If you were living in 2 acres out up in the foothills, you could probably do whatever you want. But when you're in a townhouse in Folsom, probably not so much.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a 2-sheet handout that came out about 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when it came out, it was really had a lot of fanfare for just a 2-sheet handout from Community Association Institute. But one of the most important things that it did was that it said, we're going to lay some responsibility about the happiness of living in a community association to those who run the show, for sure. However, we're going to lay some of the responsibility on those who live there, the individual homeowners.
Correct.
So it's the board of directors has rights and responsibilities, Jonathan, but in addition, the individual homeowners.
Absolutely. And just to throw a little fun fact out there, CAI, the Community Associations Institute, did do a survey. Mm-hmm. And I believe the response was over 80% of residents living in homeowners associations are very happy with their association.
That is correct. Absolutely.
And I always like to think of it as, well, do you want someone showing up and enforcing rules from the municipalities that looks like the IRS and the tax man?
Right.
Or do you want a board of directors and a great management company like Omni enforcing and regulating the rules and regulations that are always reasonable in your community
Omni
association?
does a great job in enforcement. Now, if you want to get a copy of this Rights and Responsibilities for Better Communities, you could just go to the CAI website, or you could go to our website. We'll put it on there. And what happened was when it first came out 12 years ago, a lot of associations grabbed text from it and put it into their rules. And so it's really helpful. It's a real helpful form. We're going to be referring to that when we go through the good, the bad, and the ugly of homeowners.
Indeed.
I'm looking forward to it. Have you ever seen the ugly, Rolf?
I have seen the ugly more often than I care to count.
Yeah.
It does happen. Again, most of the time, everything's cool. But when these things do rear their head, they can be very significant and not just significant, but polarizing in a community. And once you go down that road, it's very difficult to come back.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with what Rolf was talking about, and that is with rules. So associations have rules, and they can make rules so long as the authority is in your governing documents, in particular CC&Rs. And what I think is great about rules is that there's a process that the state mandates in order for board of directors to adopt rules. It came in about 6-7 years ago, and what it provides is that in order for a board of directors to adopt rules, they have to first send the rules or post the rules to the owners for 30 days.
And give opportunity to comment on them and have input.
Exactly. Right at Rolf at the board meeting. And so you're there at the board meeting. The rules have gone out to the owners or been posted for 30 days. And before the board of directors goes ahead and adopts them at that meeting, they have to sit there and see if any owners want to comment about them.
That's correct.
So my point is that this is a proactive way for associations to gain compliance. A lot of associations will come to me and say, oh, gosh, we have this problem. And I'll say, well, number one, do you have a rule? Is there a rule on that? You can only enforce it if you have a rule.
You got to have a backbone, right?
Right. And they sometimes will say, not really. And then I say, well, really? You need to go ahead and adopt a rule.
Nice. Okay, we're going to go to our first commercial break. When we come back from the break, more from Rolf Crocker and the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll be back shortly.
If your community association has a good relationship with their current management company, you can stop listening. However, if you are struggling with your current service provider, we'd love to talk with you to see if Omni Community Management would be a good fit. Transparency, education, communication, and trust are just 4 of the qualities that set Omni apart. This is Rolf Crocker, CEO of Omni. Call us at 916-965-8964. That's 916-965-8964. Online at omni-mgt.com. That's omni-mgt.com. Omni Community Management, your friend in the community association management industry for over 20 years.
Have you ever heard of the saying, a person's home is their castle? Of course you have. But sometimes a construction defect can turn your castle into a catastrophe. If this happens to you, you need proper and professional representation. You need Angius&Terry, LLP. For over 30 years, the attorneys at Angius&Terry have been effectively serving homeowners and community associations, recovering more than $500 million on behalf of their clients. Angius&Terry strives to ensure that your construction defect claims are prosecuted in an aggressive and cost-effective manner. Angius&Terry will also continue to work with homeowners and community associations after the construction defect claims are concluded to make sure that the money received from builders is spent wisely and that your interests are protected during the repair process. Don't let a construction defect turn your castle into a catastrophe. Call Angius&Terry LLP today at 916-567-1400. That's 916-567-1400. Online at angius-terry.com. Angius&Terry LLP. Professional Parking Enforcement, or PPE, was created to provide effective parking solutions for all types of parking issues. PPE focuses on parking problems of HOAs and can quickly eliminate these problems through their system of property inspection, violation updating, ticketing, and enforcement. Contact PPE today at 702-283-0628, online at ppenv.com. PPE, promoting harmony in HOAs through parking and compliance enforcement. We take time to understand your community's needs.
Silver Creek Association Management.
We solve small problems before they become big ones.
Silver Creek Association Management.
We help make your community a better place to live.
Silver Creek Association Management.
It's what we do, because an association is more than just a bunch of homes. It's a community of people. We work with you to make better communities so homeowners can enjoy better lives.
Silver Creek Association Management. Online at sc-manage.com. That's sc-manage.com.
AM 1380, The Answer.
You're listening to the Saturday HOA Brunch presented by Angius&Terry LLP. And now your hosts, Brad Epstein and Jonathan Broderick on AM 1380, The Answer.
Welcome back. We have Rolf Crocker in the house with Omni. I'm Brad Epstein, and with me as always is Jonathan Broderick. Jonathan, so we're going to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly of different homeowners, and you're cringing because you know what's coming next. And that's
What, the question of the week?
the question of the week. So this one comes from
Stump the kid.
from Mary Podesta of Newark, California, and she says, Jonathan, so we have an association rule, and we've been enforcing it for years, and it's a great rule, and the beautiful thing about this rule is that it's not in writing. It's a verbal rule, but everyone knows it because it's a small association of 5,000 homes. So is this rule enforceable, Jonathan? Is a rule that's not in writing, is that enforceable?
I would say if the rule was being enforced against me, I would fight it. And I would say,
exactly
I want to
right.
see it in writing. But at the same time, if an association is doing their job and operating the association's day-to-day operations like they should, it should have been consistently enforced, right?
Okay, now I'm not really sure what your answer is. What's going on here?
I think
I'm
he's
dodging.
I think he's an attorney.
What I'm saying is,
On the other hand,
On the other hand, I have 5 fingers.
I'm saying,
what the heck?
No, it's not enforceable.
There you go.
That's my answer.
this isn't
Beautiful.
baseball. There aren't unwritten rules. This
See?
is HOA world.
Exactly.
So my answer
That's the David
for the
Sterling Act.
question of the week, Stump the Kid, is no. You
No.
can't enforce it if it's not in your bylaws or any of your governing documents.
That's pretty darn good for
That's
the
correct.
kid, right?
Circuitous route to get there, but well done, sir.
I love when there's a 50-50 option. I can look down and go, okay, is yes or no? Yes or no?
Well, the
But
last 3 were yes, so this must be no.
that's it. That is it. So we're talking the good, the bad, and the ugly. Rules and enforcement with
Right.
Rolf Crocker.
Types of homeowners at associations.
Okay, so Rolf,
Sure.
go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the good briefly. So when we look at the good is really the vast majority of the owners. As Jonathan said, survey says that most folks are satisfied living in their HOAs. So if there's a violation that happens or a rule, if someone's breaking the rules, it's usually inadvertent or perhaps experimental, meaning let me push the envelope a little bit here and see what I could, see how far I could push this. A lot of times with that, it's just a communication issues. Maybe they just moved in and weren't aware, or maybe they saw somebody else doing it, so they thought because that person did it, it's okay for me. And how often do we see that? And what Mom used to say, well, if your friends are doing it, if your friends jumped off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff too? But that having been said, you're kind of looking at that to say, is it a communication issues? But most people generally want to follow the rules. But I think the trick here is that, we judge everybody by their actions, but ourselves by our intentions.
Say that again. That's great.
We judge others by their actions, but ourselves by our intentions. And what that means is when I make a mistake, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't intend. Well, when I parked my car out there, I was just loading the groceries in. I know it was in a fire lane, and I forgot about it because I had to get dinner on. And because you towed my car away, you should have consideration for me because I didn't mean to break the rules. But if we see somebody else breaking the rules, and this is the human condition, I think it's true of all of us, we look at that rules violation and say that person must have had ill intent, and we automatically judge them for it. So a lot of this kind of gets down to understanding people in the human condition and taking a step back to maybe give people the benefit of the doubt at least the first time out until something else proves otherwise.
Look at the big picture, right? Because enforcement and fines, they're not levied because the board of directors is planning on making a huge income and have revenue throughout the year.
Revenue enhancement, like we think that the tickets go for when we're moving violations.
Exactly. So what you're saying, Rolf, is a good approach is look at the big picture.
Correct.
Let's be reasonable.
Yep.
Let's find a solution, and let's make sure that they're informed of what consequences in the future they might have for their actions.
Right. Bearing in mind that you have a lot of homeowners, most of them, right, at least 80%, that are not intending to violate. Now, what you want to be careful about, though, is that so you have someone come in and they're at the hearing and you're on the board of directors and this is the first time for this owner, and so you're going to let him off the hook, right?
Right.
But be careful. If you're going to let this owner off the hook, you're going to have to factually distinguish it from an instance where you're not going to let someone off the hook. For instance, another homeowner who's next in line to come to the hearing, he has 5 violations. One of those violations happens to be the same violation as the homeowner you just let off the hook. All right. Well, you can't you have to let this next guy off the hook if you let the first guy off the hook.
Well, Counselor, I think there's a legal term of art for that, isn't there?
I think it's
karate. No.
Selective enforcement. Right.
Yes.
You have to be consistent. Selective enforcement is bad. In fact, I would say the number one defense, guys, in all the lawsuits over the last 20 years I've been involved with, or any kind of confrontation or dispute with an owner where they're saying, hey, the owner will defend themselves by saying, my neighbor did it.
Yes.
You did it, board of directors. Look at all the other violations. If you're going to take someone to court for a violation, you got to be ready. You can't throw rocks if you have a glass house, right?
Can't throw stones if you're in a glass house. But I'll tell you, when we send out a violations letter, if we want to find out where every other violation is in the association, we will hear about it generally from that owner. And I get it.
That is true.
And it becomes a little bit difficult to defend up front, but then the same thing applies. Since it's generally a confidential situation where there's some discretion involved, most folks don't know that maybe we are enforcing against them and we're taking action. But unfortunately, only the board and management generally knows that, but we just can't disclose that, oh yeah, we sent them a letter, because that's, that wouldn't be appropriate.
I could see that being a trend, is that a consistent violator in the community automatically turns himself into the victim. Oh, you're picking on me.
Right.
Why do I always get violations? Right? Do you see that trend?
Right. Now that's not the good. That's not the good homeowner.
Right.
That's the bad homeowner.
Exactly.
Right. Good homeowners, and they're not going to really go that direction. Also, one thing that Dan Angus would always say is, don't poison the well for mediation. What does that mean? Don't poison the well for mediation. It took me a while to because Dan Angus said this a long time ago.
Right. That was before the IDR and ADR statutes came out. He wrote this well before that.
Right.
So he saw something coming that nobody else did, but eventually it was legislated. And that is, now within civil code, there are specific directions on how boards and members are to resolve conflicts and violations. IDR is informal dispute resolution. ADR is alternative dispute resolution. And there are certain steps that boards have to take before taking it all the way to the mat.
Right.
That's right.
And even now, legislation's kind of been working its way and having association members have the rights to say, well, if I'm going to have a hearing, then I'm going to bring my attorney.
Yeah, that's
right?
cooking through the legislature right now.
That is. And what do you think about that, huh? Throwing you and the other attorney in there, you guys are going to square off.
Let's make this clear. So this is a bill that is pending. This is not a law.
Right.
It hasn't passed. Let everyone know that. It's a bill that is pending. And the bill is really short. Not to go off on a tangent, but esteemed Jonathan Broderick did bring it up.
What are you going to ask me?
Indeed.
So what the bill provides, not the law, it says that a homeowner can bring their attorney to a meeting.
Right.
And this is what happened is there was a court case, Superior Court case, went up to through the trial, Court of Appeals 2 years ago, the Liberty case. The Liberty case said board of directors have the inherent authority to not let attorneys for owners come to meetings. And so this case, this bill is trying to overturn that case.
Right.
So the bill says a homeowner can bring their attorney to a meeting. A homeowner can bring their attorney to the meeting. It's pretty simple. It's like one sentence. Mm-hmm. And you want to know what Rolf thinks of this?
Well, I wasn't going to say that. What I was going to say is actually I am confident that CAI's lobbyist Skip Daum and the California Legislative Action Committee is going to squash this bill.
Well, they are certainly motivated to do so for a lot of great reasons, but I know we're going to be coming up on the break, so just sort of to wrap up this piece on the good. So for the good homeowners, just kind of landing this part of the plane is that if you do have a situation where you have to find somebody, maybe what you do is you consider suspending those fines to make sure they remain in compliance. An association we used to manage years ago, we would do that where they would have a violation and fines. They'd meet with the board. They would promise not to do it again, and we would say, look, we're going to hold the fines in abeyance for 1 year, and after 1 year, petition the board and we'll waive the fines if you keep everything good between now and then. Otherwise, you still have that lever that you can use. But remember, the goal is always compliance. It's corrective in nature. It's not punitive in nature.
Right. So with the good homeowner, the homeowners their intentions are good, it's easy. Okay. So we're still on the easy one, right?
Correct.
Right. So
being the good Samaritan, the good resident.
The stick and the carrot approach, and really what you're using is a combination of stick and the carrot approach.
Right.
But there's really what you're doing is you're imposing it, suspending it, and you're going to reimpose it if they have another violation. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty easy because the association's not, like John said, they're not trying to make any money, just trying to gain compliance.
That's correct.
Okay, so we are going to get ready in, I think we've got about 1 minute before we have to go to break. So when we come back from the break, I think we're going to jump into the bad.
We are going to jump into the bad, and there are war stories afoot. We will have some good conversation, but to kind of set the stage for this, ultimately the goal is to try to mitigate these kinds of issues. And even if someone is being very difficult, the goal ultimately is not to be punitive, but to try to get them to compliance.
And what about, you mentioned IDR, informal dispute resolution, internal dispute resolution. This is not used very often. This is
correct.
It's a voluntary approach. It's whereby an association will ask the owner who is allegedly in violation to meet with a couple of board members over a cup of coffee and just see if they could hash through it without any kind of threat of enforcement, right?
Or litigation, correct.
So my question to you, owner of Omni,
indeed,
is how often do boards actually do this? They don't seem to do this a lot.
Not often enough, and that's something that I'm just trying to make sure we're good on time because this is a whole thing we can roll on. But having the intestinal fortitude to be able to follow through on these things is really what is necessary and how that works as a practical matter.
And so when we come back, we're going to go to the bad homeowner. So if the good was interesting, but the bad's really interesting.
Indeed.
Don't go away.
If your community association has a good relationship with their current management company, you can stop listening. However, if you are struggling with your current service provider, we'd love to talk with you to see if Omni Community Management would be a good fit. Transparency, education, communication, and trust are just 4 of the qualities that set Omni apart. This is Rolf Crocker, CEO of Omni. Call us at 916-965-8964. That's 916-965-8964. online at omni-mgt.com. That's omni-mgt.com. Omni Community Management, your friend in the community association management industry for over 20 years.
Having trouble understanding your community association's reserve study? Does your HOA's reserve study seem to be written in a strange language? Hi, I'm Robert Browning, owner of the Browning Reserve Group. At the Browning Reserve Group, we have been providing easy-to-understand reserve studies since 1999. We actually listen to our communities and help them plan for the future. Find us online at browningrg.com. That's browningrg.com, or toll free at 877-708-0600. That's 877-708-0600. Clarity from complexity, the Browning Reserve Group.
If you are a community association or manager, you know your banking relationship is vital to your success. At Sacramento Bank of Commerce, a division of Redding Bank of Commerce, our industry expertise and personal attention make that task a breeze. With our specialized banking, lockbox, online banking, and remote deposit capture, trips to the bank are no longer necessary. And Sacramento Bank of Commerce can help your communities with a loan to repair, replace, or upgrade the investment. For local decisions and in-house processing, get in touch with our team today. Call Sacramento Bank of Commerce at 916-772-0131. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Did you see the story about the Homeowners Association? I wonder what their residents think.
I don't know, but I love my condominium association. The place looks great and is well managed, and our property values are increasing.
Well, that's a good thing.
Community Associations Institute, CAI, has helped us build a great community. They have tools for safeguarding our investment, including education for our board and professional training for our manager. Just visit CAI at responsiblecommunities.com.
Okay, responsiblecommunities.com.
News, opinion, insight. AM 1380. The Answer.
You're listening to the Saturday HOA Brunch presented by Angius&Terry, LLP. And now your hosts, Brad Epstein and Jonathan Broderick on AM 1380, The Answer.
Man, great job today, Frank, with the entry and exit music, right? The
I love that
transitions
surf
and
music, don't
rejoiners.
you?
He's like putting us in the summer spirit, and we're looking out at these, gray clouds and rain that's hitting Highway 80.
I love it. More rain. Yeah, Rolf Crocker with Omni, and he was just telling us about when he was a kid, how he grew up on surf music.
Absolutely. In fact, the second song I ever learned how to play was Pipeline by the Shantays. And Jan and Dean, Beach Boys, was raised on all of that, and that's still my go-to.
Jonathan, do you know that song? Do you know Pipeline?
You know, I've probably heard it.
If I played it, you would know it.
I've heard of the Beach
absolutely.
Boys, but I'm not. I can't just sit here and list a bunch of their tracks. I'm sorry. I apologize. I know they're icons.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
We can help you with that.
We can. Yeah, you don't know what you're missing.
Post-show, we're going to have a hearing with Jonathan about Beach Boys music.
Well, actually, so free plug, Brian Wilson, who was the founder of the Beach Boys, is coming through Sacramento mid-year to do the Pet Sounds. It's the 50th anniversary of the album Pet Sounds, which is regarded as one of the greatest rock albums of all time. And he's coming through with his band to perform it locally.
It's going
he's
to
like
be at the
72 years
casino,
old.
right?
No, I think it's going to be at the Civic or at the Veterans Hall.
I'm going to get tickets.
Yeah.
You need to. It will be amazing.
Yeah.
It'll be absolutely
wow,
amazing.
50 years.
50 years since Pet Sounds. Yes, sir.
Hey, you know what, Rolf?
There we go. Oh, listen, Frank, man. Called it out.
So he just is bringing in all
That's
of
Pipeline.
How could you not love
Oh, this song. Yes, Pipeline. Now it rings a bell.
You know, down at Santa Cruz, hitting the waves?
Come on.
For sure.
I'm a SoCal boy, so.
Rolf, you just gave a great plug for the Beach Boys. I don't know. Don't worry about getting me tickets. I'll probably just catch it on YouTube or something post-concert. But give yourself a plug, and you have a big event coming up in April.
That's
for
correct.
Omni Community Management.
Yes, on annually we do a board member conference where we have vendors come, so it gives the boards a chance to meet our vendors. But even more important than that, even though that is important, is to have some great speakers come and talk to board members about things like just the latest legislative updates, CC&R revisions. We have landscapers and reserve study preparers and CPAs.
I love listening to landscapers. Guys, so helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, especially with the drought over the last few years and looking out the window, you think maybe that's still not important, but I assure you that it is.
It definitely is.
Words of wisdom, Mr. Crocker.
Indeed.
So that's going to be April 16th.
April 16th, Saturday.
Citrus Heights Community Center.
Correct. And it'll go from about 9 o'clock to 1:30.
Yeah. And they could contact you to go.
They can contact us to go. Anybody is welcome. It's free to the public. So just shoot us an email, and we would love to have you be a part.
Give the listenership that email address and the phone number to get a hold of Omni if they would like to go to a great seminar or expo for board members conference.
Sure.
That is going to provide a ton of education for industry.
Email address is rsvp@omni-mgt.com. Again, that's rsvp@omni-mgt.com.
Rolf, tell us about the bad homeowner, the quote-unquote bad
homeowner. Is, every association has at least one, and some of you listening right now are thinking, one? We got about 3 or 4 of them. These are the kind of people that really ultimately they don't really belong in an association. Maybe they, part of the challenge with the housing market is that some of the affordable homes have only been in homeowners associations, so maybe they didn't come into this with the whole idea of communal living and everything it provides. They just needed a house, but they really don't belong in an association. But they still think that
What do you mean by that? What? Don't belong. I mean, I'm in agreement 100%.
Right.
I deal with these homeowners that don't belong in an association. What does that mean to you?
If you like to pull the engine out of your car and work out in the sunshine to be able to overhaul your engine, HOA is probably not the right place for you.
Or actually have a business where people come over and you haul their engines out of their cars
exactly. Or you like to play loud music, or you host loud parties because you're a very social person. HOA is probably not the right place for you.
Right. There are a lot of community associations, period.
Right.
And that has been the trend since Proposition 13 in the 70s.
50,000 homeowners associations in the state of California. And to the Prop 13, the sales pitch on HOAs has always been communal living and it's economy of scale because you can get these cool amenities for a low price. But really, the secret is that developers can build more on less land and that municipalities don't want to maintain infrastructure in a post-Prop 13 world. And they delegate all of those to an HOA. So you virtually cannot build anywhere without having some kind of an HOA or a CID, a common interest development, in the state of California.
Right. But the reality is that there are particular people, and they would admit it. They would admit, this is not for me. Association life is not for me.
But for whatever reason, they purchased in. Our homes is the single biggest expense that most of us will make in our lifetimes, and maybe they can't afford to move somewhere else, but yet they want to impose their "my home is my castle" mindset on everybody else.
Okay, now I have a different type of bad homeowner. This type of homeowner is in an association because they just love to jab the board. They love to jab the board. These
Instigator.
They just love it. They'll throw bottles from the gallery.
Right.
And these are the homeowners that I deal with as a community association attorney a lot. This is the majority of our general counsel work. We don't work a lot with the good homeowners.
Right.
They don't reach us. You get most of those, but once it's a homeowner that they just love to go ahead and deride the board,
right,
point out any kind of mistakes. And, they would say, hey, we're the devil's advocate. We're just trying to make sure that they're honest.
We're the contrarian.
Contrarian. Yeah, I love that word.
You like that? That sounds clean and pristine.
Right. So, let's give them, let's tout them for the fact that, yes, they make things transparent.
Right.
They are the counterforce. They are the counterforce to make sure our boards are honest. Most boards are honest anyway. And to make sure that they have all the decisions, that they hear all the decisions.
Right.
Okay.
But I think the trick with some of that is that somebody can act a certain way or react a certain way, and you don't necessarily, if you don't know where they're coming from, it makes it hard to diagnose and find out what the best prescription is for the issue. Sometimes somebody can come in and be very, very angry, and it could be because they've come to the board before, to management, and things haven't gotten resolved, and it's escalated over a period of time, and they're normally one of the good people, but because they haven't been heard, by the time they get to the hearing, then they're just railing, or they could just be, like you said, just those people who are contrarian and, to be candid, a jerk.
Okay, now my brethren, attorneys.
Indeed.
Attorneys in associations. Now, sometimes they
instigators.
They can be, for sure, because their whole life is due process. We talked about that. And they are ones to go ahead and fight for their rights and the rights of others. That is what they went to law school for. Maybe they've been a lawyer for a long time.
Sure.
And so my brethren, attorneys, they're real pain in a lot of associations. Am I right?
They absolutely can be, although I think there's another vocational interest that can be even more challenging than attorneys. And with the risk of hopefully not offending too many of our listeners, engineers can also be a little bit more challenging than attorneys.
Okay, right, because the detailed-oriented,
correct,
and to chart things out,
yes,
and to really distill and to bring out different, like for the reserves. Is that what you're talking about? Finances,
reserves, and process, and all those things. Which for most HOAs, they're lay people. Board members are lay people. It doesn't necessarily require that level of scrutiny, but we all tend to bring our vocational experience and our life experience to the table and apply it to whatever we're a part of.
And I find this kind of funny, right? We're talking about the bad. We're talking about the instigators. We're talking about the people that question the decisions the board of directors make in community associations. But guess what? When it's time for the election and the ballots come out, they're not signing up. They're not volunteering.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's if you want to take action, you want to get involved, and you want to volunteer for your community and help make some of the day-to-day decisions, then you know what? Get up off the couch, turn off the Seinfeld reruns, go into the board meetings, and start actually
tough talk from the kid
and having a positive impact.
Well, I can tell
community.
you, and to that end, Jonathan, most of our board members with Omni, they would welcome somebody else stepping up. A lot of them step up because no one else is, because they care about their community, they want to do the right thing, and they would welcome that kind of an input. But too often it's difficult to even get board members to serve.
Now, another type of the bad is the homeowners that they don't have the personality, though, to get on a board of directors because they're not a team player and they're not calm. Okay, we have to admit.
Red in the face.
The personality spectrum. There are some homeowners shouldn't live at associations. They're the bad homeowner because they're violent. Okay, so this is a reality. They get very angry, like you said, red in the face, and violence could occur. So that's another type that you as a manager for associations must deal with.
Absolutely. So again, diagnosing the personalities and trying to diagnose the right prescription, it's not going to be the same every time for every person. So management's task in assisting their boards is to help them walk through that process and not to personalize it, but make it practical to get to resolution.
Okay, resolution. So Rolf, what are some of the important things that practical strategies?
Right. So first of all, if things are going bad, document. You have to keep documentation.
Keep the records, right?
Keep the records, dates, times. Doesn't have to be personal opinion, but at least what happened, when it occurred.
Where is that? Where do you put this? Are you talking about the minutes? Or
it could be in the minutes. It could be in a personal log. It could be in correspondence or violation letters. It could be in any number of places, but make sure you have date and time when events occurred.
So nowadays, good management companies, so when the calls come in, you keep logs. Is that what's going on?
Keeping logs is a critical part of what we do. So that's part of it. Get any agreements in writing. If there is an agreement, make sure it's in writing. Have a pattern of escalating enforcement, meaning up front, be gentle, but if they don't, then kind of ratchet it up to where it's necessary. Sometimes you can't be afraid to call the police, and we've had situations where we've had to bring in law enforcement, and those are very difficult. We're going to deal with a little bit more of that under the ugly. But yeah, those are all things that you can do to try to bring that to heed and bring that to a conclusion.
You know, we have a manager that we work with down in the Central Valley, and she has told me before that she has had to actually have armed security.
I've had
attend the board meetings to make sure that they can keep the peace. Hey, we're going to go to break. We're going to come back for our last segment. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk
about ugly.
Yeah, the ugly. This is going to be fun stuff. We'll be back.
Hi, I'm Morgan Fussell. My company, Broadband Agreements, negotiates cable television and broadband right of entry, access, and compensation agreements for your communities. At Broadband Agreements, we offer a free review of all agreements with a signed letter of authorization. Broadband agreements will improve your community's income and or savings, or you don't pay us a dime. Visit us at broadbandagreements.com. That's broadbandagreements.com. Or call me, Morgan Fussell, directly at 916-939-5026. That's 916-939-5026. Broadband agreements online at broadbandagreements.com or 916-939-5026.
The challenges presented by today's economy and rebounding housing market is forcing many homeowners association boards of directors to operate their HOAs more like a business. It's a balancing act of trying to stay solvent and still provide homeowners with quality amenities and services. One of the main challenges HOA boards are facing is attempting to recover unpaid HOA fees owed by delinquent homeowners. Collection efforts are often very time-consuming. If you want to get the HOA fees collection monkey off of your back, call ATC Assessment Collection Group. ATC is an attorney-supervised collection company, providing collection and foreclosure services to HOAs in both California and Nevada's most recognizable communities. Get back to what you actually volunteered to do as an HOA board member. Effectively oversee your community. Call ATC today at 916-641-1410. That's 916-641-1410. Online at atcacg.com. That's atcacg.com. ATC Assessment Collection Group. Professional Parking Enforcement, or PPE, was created to provide effective parking solutions for all types of parking issues. PPE focuses on parking problems of HOAs and can quickly eliminate these problems through their system of property inspection, violation updating, ticketing, and enforcement. Contact PPE today at 702-283-0628, online at ppenv.com. PPE, promoting harmony in HOAs through parking and compliance enforcement. We take time to understand your community's needs.
Silver Creek Association Management.
We solve small problems before they become big ones.
Silver Creek Association Management.
We help make your community a better place to live.
Silver Creek Association Management.
It's what we do, because an association is more than just a bunch of homes. It's a community of people. We work with you to make better communities so homeowners can enjoy better lives.
Silver Creek Association Management. Online at sc-manage.com. That's sc-manage.com.
AM 1380, The Answer.
You're listening to the Saturday HOA Brunch presented by Angius&Terry, LLP. And now your hosts, Brad Epstein and Jonathan Broderick on AM 1380, The Answer.
I like it. Frank's feeling kind of funky today. So here's my question. What artist is that rejoining us?
Wait,
Come on.
You're turning the tables on me?
Yeah.
I will talk slowly as I Google who that was.
Right.
Do I have my Shazam app? Wait, let me check this and see if I can find out.
Seriously. Okay, so we were having...
No. Hey, what? Who was it?
I have no idea.
You asked a question without knowing the answer.
So
wait, in the house, we have Rolf Crocker with Omni.
And he brought up a great point. We're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, rules and enforcement.
Right, these are homeowners.
And these are homeowners.
We all have to put ourselves in one category or another.
Yeah,
right? We have to be honest with ourselves, right,
and
Rolf?
Yes.
Rolf, you brought up a good point. For all of this to work, there's some things that need to come together.
Yes, there is. Probably the biggest misunderstanding that's out there with owners and sometimes with boards of directors is that ultimately management is not a police force. We're not the ultimate ones who actually enforce the governing documents or enforce the rules. We implement the policies of the board of directors, but unless, Counselor, you tell me otherwise, the ultimate authority rests with the board of directors, that the peers have to govern themselves. And this is the most difficult piece of all of this, because when you have to govern your peers, people that you live around, it just becomes so much more, the sense of difficulty is heightened. And as lay people, which board members are, it becomes difficult to have to go to your neighbor and tell them that they have to do certain things. So we talked about this term intestinal fortitude, being able to understand the reasons why, that it's not personal, but it's to gain something for the betterment of the association is the goal. But ultimately that has to come through the board of directors through a hearing process and their willingness to then to pursue other avenues.
Right. And it is difficult to be a board member.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Picture yourself at the tables in front of the meeting room, and the owners might be unhappy with you, And certainly the owner that you're going to have at a hearing is going to be unhappy with you.
Right.
And they're going to...
It's automatically adversarial.
It is difficult. But there is a real good feeling when you're able to do something for your community and putting yourself in an uncomfortable position like that.
Right.
You're challenging yourself and you succeed through it. You're just going to grow. And one of the things that I always like to say is I love working with board members and managers because these are people who are challenging themselves, putting themselves in uncomfortable positions for their communities and going through the bumps but coming out successful. Now, let me underline what you said.
Sure.
As board members, it is your association. Your manager is there to help you. It's not theirs. And it doesn't switch, right? It doesn't
never.
become...
In fact, I tell all of our staff, I said, look, we need to have their eyes and ears because we don't live there, they do. And if we don't have their eyes and ears, we cannot meet the needs of that specific community. Every community is unique. I like to say the Articles of Incorporation is like the birth certificate, and the DNA is made up of the individual members, and everyone's different.
I like that, yeah.
How often does this happen is a homeowner calls up and they go, well, there's cameras all over the community.
Right.
You mean you guys didn't see the video? And you're going, sir, Omni does not have a live feed to your community and have the rights to monitor your cameras to enforce policies.
Indeed.
And I could see that being something that comes up and people go, well, there's cameras everywhere. Didn't you see it?
Well, and to a certain degree, you can deal with some of that, but it becomes issues of enforcement, of deterrent. There's a lot of other things going on. But most of the stuff, when you're talking about rules violations, it's really not something that's necessarily done on camera. Those things that are done of somebody parking in the wrong place or taking their dog out and not cleaning up after them, doing an architectural change without going through the architectural review process.
But those could be, something like they're parking illegally. That it could be something that could be enforced via evidence from a camera in the community. Correct.
Well, under towing regulations, you actually have to have somebody sign off on that. So there's a certain amount of
Jonathan
that
knew
already
that.
exists.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I brought up.
Because you've had Brian Hunt with PPE here, and he's told you this.
All right.
He's a parking ninja.
All right. Rolf Crocker with Omni. Tell us about
the ugly. The ugly. In fact, my brother used to use the term ugly, which is 1,000 times ugly. So the ugly is difficult to deal with, and when it gets to this point, it's usually more of a tragic situation than even something you can find humor in. They may be mentally or emotionally unbalanced. It can be complicated by drug or alcohol abuse. They could be dissidents, and we also manage some communities where just a factor of aging in place can create some dynamics. And
right,
it's very
that is more
to
common, isn't it? Yes.
More and more common all the
like
time.
an eschaton community or something, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
that's correct.
That would make sense. So why are you looking at me? I'm not aging you. I'm not, advising you to jump into the eschaton. So go ahead, Rolf.
So some strategies, again, practical strategies for dealing with the ugly. At that point, it's not up to the board and counselor, I think you would agree with this, to go in and be that enforcement mechanism into people's homes. At that point, use Health and Human Services, Health Department, County Building Code Enforcement. Sometimes if the police have to be called in, it's usually if they're a danger to themselves or a danger to others. And if there's enough of this, like an aging in place situation, maybe you want to get a list of services that the community or the municipality offers in order to help them. Meals on Wheels, adult protective services. There are practical things that associations can do to be proactive to help their communities.
This is a huge issue, and actually CAI Northern Chapter is having an evening presentation
March 17th.
It's on St. Patty's Day. It is.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to make it or not.
The biggest issue I deal with is where parents put their their kids, who are not really a kid, out into a community and out of sight, out of mind, and the kid has some mental problems.
And we've had that PTSD, veterans, and so forth, and it's a very difficult process to deal with.
Rolf, real quick before we end the show. Omni. If you were going to contact Omni and you are interested in possibly obtaining information about your management services, contact number, website
is 916-8965-8964.
Again, one more time.
916. I'm putting on the spot here. 986-8964. And I hope I gave that correctly because I don't call myself too often.
I've dialed it a lot.
Excellent. Very good.
Rolf, we're so happy you were here today. What
Thanks,
a great
guys.
show.
It was
Jonathan,
awesome.
Great show. Frank, great show. Listeners, thank you so much.
Las Vegas, here we come.
Rock.